Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. My name is Vince and thanks for joining me for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Today I'm in the town of Allegheny, New York and beautiful Cattaraugus County to check out the Allegheny River Valley Trail. The Allegheny River Valley Trail is both a loop trail and a connecting point-to-point trail in one, but it didn't start out that way. According to local knowledge, the approximate 5-mile loop trail in the town of Allegheny was the brainchild of Joe Higgins, who was the driving force behind the trail's creation. With the support of the Cattaraugus Region Community Foundation, various politicians and local volunteers, and with the permission of St. Bonaventure University, on whose land some of the trail sits, the Allegheny River Valley Trail became a reality in 1998. The connector trail through Olean was added a few years later after additional grants were secured. According to local sources, long-range plans have been discussed to connect the Allegheny River Valley Trail to Allegheny State Park, that's about 11 miles west of where we are. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, particularly on sub 10-mile trails, you'll recall that I sometimes stick it to various trail apps for seeming inaccuracies on trail length and tracking compared to what we see live on the ground. And we're going to continue that tradition in this video. The Cattaraugus Region Community Foundation, who manages the trail, lists the loop trail as being 5.5 miles. Actually, they're very specific. They clock it at 5.548 miles. And while their trail map that you can obtain at the trailhead shows the connecting point-to-point trail, they don't actually measure it on the map. But according to Google Maps, this trail segment is 2.1 miles one way from the junction of the loop trail to its terminus at War Veterans Park. There is a separate section of the connector trail that juts south for about a half a mile and terminates at 4 Mile Brewing on East Green Street. TrailLink lists the Allegheny River Valley Trail as an 8.1 mile trail, but looking at their description, it appears that they're arriving at this figure because they're adding this 1/2 mile cutoff portion to their overall calculation. Now, all trails, they only list the loop trail in their curation, marking it at 5.6 miles, so that's not too bad. But they named their curation Allegheny River Valley Trail using the spelling of the town's name, not the river's.
What?
Did I ever say how annoyed I get with spelling errors? Just ask the nurses in my practice. I get on them all the time for that stuff. So, let's do the math. 5.548 for the loop plus 2.1 miles one way on the connector equals 7.648 miles. But who's counting? This is such a fun trail to ride. I doubt that many of us really care that it's under 10 miles from start to finish. And regardless of what mile calculation you want to believe, the loop trail is very easy to follow. So the loop trailhead is right here. It shares space with St. Bonaventure University, and it's here that the mile markers for the loop trail start. The parking for this trailhead is along the trailside itself, sharing space with one of the student parking areas for the university. That said, you can count on about 15 parking spaces with 3 handicap spaces for the trail. You can also use this front area here for parking. However, because this is technically a student parking lot, you want to be respectful of the students and give them priority in parking, especially when classes are in session. At this trailhead, there's just the parking, a bike rack, and a bench. There are no water or toilet facilities right now, but the trail's official map lists public restrooms available further down the university's roadway. So before we check out the Allegheny River Valley Trail, let's spend a few minutes to highlight the 2 towns that host this trail, the town of Allegheny and the city of Olean. The town of Allegheny is located just west of Olean in Cattaraugus County. Its history is tied to the development of the southern tier of New York and the growth of St. Bonaventure University. The Seneca Nation of Native Americans, part of the Iroquois Confederacy, originally inhabited this entire area, using the Allegheny River as a vital transportation and trade route. It's good to note that the entire western New York region has a variety of Native American inhabitants and influence to this day. In fact, the Seneca Nation has an active community not too far from the town of Allegheny. European settlers first arrived in the early 1800s, and the town of Allegheny was officially formed in 1831 from the town of Great Valley. Allegheny developed as an agriculture and lumber-producing community. Logging was especially important in the 19th century, with sawmills operating along the Allegheny River. The Allegheny River and later the arrival of railroads helped fuel trade and connect Allegheny to regional markets in northwestern Pennsylvania and the lower upstate of New York, sometimes referred to as the Southern Tier. The Roman Catholic Franciscan order founded St. Bonaventure University in 1858 just outside the village, and it ultimately grew into a major regional university and spiritual center for the Roman Catholic Church. The village of Allegheny was incorporated in 1906, developing its own identity apart from the surrounding rural town. Today, Allegheny is largely a residential community, known for its proximity to outdoor recreation and its close ties to the university. The Western New York and Pennsylvania Railroad, a short-line railway that serves as a connector to nearby industries and larger railroads, maintains an active rail yard and maintenance facility in Allegheny. Right next door, the city of Olean, New York, also has a rich and varied history shaped by industry, transportation, and natural resources. First settled by non-Native Americans around 1804, the area was originally called Hamilton. It was renamed Olean in 1808, derived from the Latin word oleum, meaning oil, reflecting early interest in petroleum seeps in the area. It's said that the first oil discovered in North America was about 12 miles north of the current city area. In the mid-1800s, oil wells and production facilities sprouted in the Olean area, and the area also played a crucial role as a transportation hub. It was a refining and shipping point for crude oil coming from nearby fields. Olean became an important railroad junction, with lines like the Erie Railroad and the Pennsylvania Railroad passing through. This made it a key link for goods, including the nearby logging and lumber industries, as well as for travelers. Olean was incorporated as a city in 1893 and saw its growth in its downtown area, with commercial buildings, schools, and institutions like the nearby St. Bonaventure University. By the early 1900s, Olean had developed into a significant industrial center in the region. It was home to companies like Clark Brothers Company, later Dressler Rand, which made oil and gas equipment, among many other industries. After the manufacturing downturn in America, Olean has worked to revitalize its economy with a focus on healthcare, education, and service industries. Historic buildings have been preserved, and efforts to enhance the quality of life, such as parks and cultural activities, continue to shape the city's identity. Sometimes nicknamed the Enterprising City, as a nod to its entrepreneurial roots and its ongoing efforts to reinvent itself through the years, Olean continues to live up to its promise as the city where small town charm and big city industry meet. I hope you enjoyed that brief look at the history of these two great southern tier towns, and now it's time to mount up and check out the Allegheny River Valley Trail. So starting on the trail at the St. Bonaventure University trailhead, you could technically go either west toward the river or east along the front, if you will, of the university. However, the mile markers that start here clock that way. As you can see, 5.55 miles, and the Bona Loop 2.58 from here, obviously in a loop. We'll talk about the Bona Loop here in a minute. So the treadway of the Allegheny River Valley Trail is fully paved, 8 to 10 feet wide. There are some wood plank bridges that we'll cross and a few bumpy spots to watch out for. And obviously we'll have a few road crossings that we'll see along the way. It's going to be our first big curve here to the left, and at the end of it is an interesting feature I want to show you. So if you look, there's an old bridge piling in the middle of the river. According to Dennis Frank with the St. Bonaventure University Archives, this is what's left of a bridge used by the Pennsylvania Railroad that once crossed the Allegheny at this point. And as we come out of the curve here, we're going to see the first mile marker, and most of them are going to be on the right-hand side, if you may be on the left, but they're actually in quarter-mile increments. And I think one of the reasons for that is because this loop is so highly used by walkers, joggers, not just cyclists, that if they wanted to track their mileage, this is a good way to do it in quarter-mile increments. And we're going to get some really decent views of the Allegheny River through the trees here as we go along. And interestingly, I think the river seems, I don't know, the locals can tell me one way or another, because it does look like it's flowing fairly quickly, and it looks like it's a little bit high. Locals, you could tell me, is this normal or is this a little bit high? It seems a little high to me. But then again, I don't live around here, so I'm not really sure. One thing you'll notice right away on the riverside portion of the trail is that this is by no means a straightaway. Because it follows the river, you're going to see a lot of bends in the trail, but obviously they're not hard to navigate at all. Another thing you're going to notice along the riverside portion of the trail that there are a lot of benches on this side facing the river that people can just take a break, stop, relax, and, you know, watch the river. Nice, peaceful stuff. And that's one of the things that I think that not just trail walkers, but trail cyclists love to use trails like this to be able to relax, unwind, and you know what I'm going to say if you've watched any of my other videos. What is this? Better than yoga. St. Bonaventure University, the back of St. Bonaventure University, we'll see the front in a little bit, but there's this large sports complex, football fields, etc. here around the half-mile mark. Now, notwithstanding the end of May and all of the rain that Western New York suffered over the last several days and the Memorial Day weekend, well, I tell you what, it turned out to be a beautiful day here. A little on the chilly side, but it's really, really nice. It was very, very cloudy this morning. You may actually see some of those segments that I shot earlier in the morning where it was a little bit more cloudy, but this afternoon it came out nice. And we come up to the first mile on the loop. Really nice views of the river. I don't know if anybody fishes this river, but I would assume that some people do, or at least this portion of it anyway. And we're coming up close to the 1.25 mile mark. And public restrooms that way, I mentioned earlier. The St. Bonaventure Loop, or the Bona Loop as they like to call it, goes off in this direction. So I'm going to show you some pictures. I actually filmed this a little bit earlier this morning, so it's probably going to be a little bit more cloudy, but it's actually really nice. It goes right along 2 Mile Creek that we're going to be crossing over here in just a second. That adds about 9/10 of a mile distance from here all the way up to the intersection at the main entrance of the campus along West State Street that we'll see in a little bit later in the video. The foundation lists this shorter Bona Loop as a total of 2.58 miles going around from the start of the trail back to it, if you use that little shortcut. And coming up to our first bridge, this is 2 Mile Creek. We're going to be crossing over 2 Mile Creek 3 times in this video, or 4 if you count going to the connector and back. But this is a really nice, relaxing thing. There's not a lot of water flowing right now because you can see it's a little stagnant on that side, but obviously empties out into the Allegheny. And a little bit up and really close to the river. Don't fall over. We're getting close to the 2 mile mark here, and you can see we're getting close to what's called Gargoyle Park, and they have a disc golf that we'll talk about in a minute. You can see Gargoyle Park is very large, has a lot of greenery, and obviously goes back that way too. So just at about the 2 mile mark here, there are actually 2 connecting spur trails to Gargoyle Park itself and to the parking area. One is a little bit more spurious than the other here. And obviously to get to the parking area, because usually I'm sure they have that gate locked, you kind of have to go around on your bike. Sitting at the edge of the town of Allegheny, Gargoyle Park is used by the locals during the summer months for a variety of public events. It has a large enclosed pavilion, a playground area, and even an 18-hole disc golf course, reportedly the first in Cattaraugus County. The parking area is at the end of Gargoyle Road. It's a decently sized gravel lot that I'd estimate can hold about 20 vehicles or so. There aren't any dedicated handicap spaces though, so be aware of that. So as I mentioned, to get into Gargoyle Park from the trail, you have 2 different trail access points. We came up the one that I probably wouldn't recommend. We're gonna go back down the one that I would recommend, but in order to get from the parking area to that trail spur, you actually have to go across the grass for a little bit. Just past hole 16 there on the disc golf course. Actually never played disc golf. I've seen some people do it and it looks pretty interesting though. Okay, so back on the trail, make the left to keep going the way we're going. See, it's turning the afternoon and I'm getting a little bit more busy on this portion of the trail. Going to be going over another little wooden bridge, but I don't think there's a name for this creek. If anybody knows what the name of this little creek is, leave me a message in the comments below. Mine behind you.
Thank you.
There's the city of Olean marker. Now we're in Olean. And you see a little zigzag in here. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing some editing work in post-production to block out some faces here. As I mentioned actually in my intro video, if you've ever seen that, I'm not going to actually make these videos you watching me riding every single inch of a trail because that would be boring. Obviously, I do edit these videos for content for time, so we don't see a whole heck of a lot of each mile as a whole mile. You see the little pieces, but I do try to get some people in and some people out and trying to block everybody's faces if I do have to use them on the video, so I think that's only fair. Coming up to another little bend here. Nice little clearing, and on the right around this S-bend is the Olean wastewater treatment plant. This is about mile 3 on the loop. Matter of fact, mile 3. Coming up to the first of several road crossings on the trail. This is West Henley Street. So we're coming up to West State Street, that's numbered as New York Route 417. It's the major thoroughfare that cuts through both Allegheny and Olean. And close to the crossover, you can see a bicycle repair station and a water fountain. I don't know if the water fountain's working because I don't see any push buttons or anything, but obviously the bike repair station is here, so that's actually a good thing. So at this point, the trail is actually going to follow the sidewalk on the southern side of West State Street up to the intersection here with the Enterprise Rent-A-Car on our left and North 20th Street on the other side. Now, obviously, we'll need to cross North 20th Street here, and you can see that beyond the crossover, the trail continues on the eastern side of North 20th Street. But since this is a very busy intersection, I don't recommend trying to ride across it. Just dismount here and wait for the light. Now, once we cross the intersection, the trail will actually parallel North 20th Street for a few blocks here. And you know, I love interpretive sign. This is talking about the VinFizz, commemorating the historic first American transcontinental flight, and Calbraith Cal Rogers. Coming up to the intersection with Washington Street. And about 3.5 miles in. Sorry guys, but you have to do some maintenance on this trail. I think y'all heard that one. All right, crossing another wooden bridge. This is 2 Mile Creek again. Shortly after crossing over 2 Mile Creek, we hit the 3 3/4 mile mark and we meet the fork in the road. So now we have a decision to make here. The original 5.5 mile Allegheny River Valley Trail loop continues straight at this junction. Now, we could continue right along the loop and check out the connector later, but what the heck, we're right here, so let's check out the connector now, and then we'll come right back here in a little bit and finish off the rest of the Allegheny River Valley Trail original loop. So starting on the connector trail here, this portion of the connector parallels Constitution Avenue. It's up that way. And you're going to have a little bump here. saw that coming. And another little wooden bridge, and guess what? We're crossing over 2 Mile Creek again. And coming up that little hill. Just be careful, we're crossing over a driveway for a small industrial park that's off to the right there. There are a couple of really big bumps here by these trees. You can hear them. I have a feeling that these trees were smaller whenever the trail was built, or the connector trail was at least conceived. And right here you can see a nice little covered seating area here, just at about a half mile on the connector. So just ahead you can see there's a country fair convenience store here now. At this point, the trail makes 2 90-degree bends to reach North 12th Street. So you really have to be careful going through these metal trail barriers because of the way that they're placed. I'm going along just with 1 foot to the ground and my hand on my throttle. And at the end of this paved portion, we're going to come up to North 12th Street. You could see, I'm going to show a better picture of this nice little arch, Allegheny River Valley Trail. Now, here's the consternation, folks, because technically there's no little section here for the bike riders to actually go onto the street. My better bet here, in order to reach Wayne Avenue, which is right there, we may as well just use the sidewalk that's next to the country fair, and then use the country fair's access point to get onto the road. So there's really no getting around the fact that the connector follows road surfaces for a little bit, so you just want to be careful that you're either using lights, reflective clothing, or anything that's going to make you stand out in traffic. And I suppose you can actually use the sidewalk, but you can see that the berm of Wayne Avenue is actually marked as a bike lane. However, as we get closer, you're going to find out that you're going to have to actually jump on the sidewalk because the bike lane tends to go away after a little while. Obviously, using the bike lane on a busy road like this, you just want to be careful of anything on the road surface that can give you problems, puncture your tires, etc. Now, between North 8th and North 7th Street is the 1 mile mark for the connector. So here I'm actually going to jump onto the sidewalk after the Olean School District parking area for the teachers, and there's a very good reason why I'm going to do this. One, the bike lane starts to disappear, and two, the trail actually makes a very hard right here at the end of this chain link fence. So blink and you'll miss it. Wow, that really looks like a nice complex though. What is that? AstroTurf? That's a this is like AstroTurf. How does a semi-rural, suburban, whatever they want to call themselves, school district rate AstroTurf? Wow, that actually looks nice though. Maybe I'm just being too snooty.
How dare you!
So at the other end of the sports complex, you see by the tennis courts here, the trail will actually parallel North 1st Street. And again, there's really no good place to actually jump off. So I'm just going to use the sidewalk here until we get to the intersection with Whitney Avenue. Now right here at North 1st Street, the trail is actually going to turn left onto Whitney Avenue over Union Street and towards Jamestown Community College Olean campus. But you can tell that there's limited sight distance looking southward on North 1st Street, so be careful. We're coming up to North Union Street now. This can be a very busy road, so obviously you just want to be very careful going across it. But they do have obviously those pedestrian warning lights. Question is, does anybody pay attention to them? I think they do actually in Western New York here. Well, the trail's actually going through Jamestown Community College, and this is a weekend day, so obviously no classes. And right here at this A little bit of a four-way intersection by the college's library is where the trail actually turns left. And coming off of the campus itself, the trail returns to the familiar pavement. This little bit is actually pretty nice though, because you can see on the right-hand side here, they actually have lights. So coming down a little bit of a hill here. This is about the 2-mile mark for the connector trail, and here we go with another decision point. If we take the left here, we'll ride up to East State Street and into War Veterans Park, which we can't see it from here, but it's over in that direction. That option adds about 2/10 of a mile of trail to get to the park itself. Now, if we continue straight, we'll head down to the other listed terminus of the connector that's actually on the brochure. It connects to East Green Street and 4 Mile Brewing. That option is about a half a mile stretch to its terminus. Now back at this junction, let's head up the hill to East State Street. So here at East State Street, some of the trail apps actually have you going across East State Street all the way down that way and ending up in War Veterans Park, which is over in that direction. However, there's a perfectly good sidewalk right here, and you don't have to cross the street. I'm going to the left onto the sidewalk, and that's the way I'm going. And this is the way I actually recommend everybody else go too. But here's Olean Creek. And again, there's another little interesting point of history in Olean Creek. There are a few old bridge pilings. Again, St. Bonaventure University archivist Dennis Frank tells me that this was part of an old railroad grade for the Pittsburgh, Shawmut, and Northern Railroad. I think now actually what they have is some flood prevention machinery on either side of the creek there. So right at the other end of the sidewalk, we can make a left right here into War Veterans Park. So War Veterans Park is a large park here in the city of Olean. It has a very large paved and lined parking area for 140 vehicles, including several marked handicapped spaces. Looking around, you can see a number of benches, a covered event building, and a wheelchair charging station. I've actually never seen one of those before, but I don't think they have any dedicated e-bike charging stations here. There's also a playground, water facilities, bike racks, and the Olean Recreational Center behind the event building, and that's where the restrooms are. Close to East State Street, there's a pedestrian tunnel here that connects the park to Bradner Stadium across the street. It's used for local baseball and football teams, along with community events like Independence Day fireworks. Now that we've checked out the connector trail, we're back here at the junction with the original loop trail. So let's keep going and finish the loop. Now this portion of the loop trail follows Constitution Avenue, just going in a westerly direction. A lot of this portion, until we get back to St. Bonaventure University, is going to pass by business and industrial areas rather than residential. And because of that, the trail will cross several businesses' access ways. The trail track crosses Constitution Avenue here. On the north side of Constitution Avenue, the trail continues westward. Now keep alert on this stretch, since we're going to be crossing access ways to a number of businesses, so we should be aware of any traffic coming to or from the businesses. Fortunately, since this is a weekend day, I don't think a lot of these businesses are either going to be open or have a lot of traffic coming off the road. Now, this portion is a little bit bumpier at points. Oh, and if you need to do any shopping, there's a BJ's Wholesale Club and a Walmart over there, not to mention a Home Depot. And a sign says that we're leaving the city of Olean and coming back into the town of Allegheny. A little ice cream shop there. Again, this area is a little bumpy, so just be aware you are going to get rattled. And about the 4.5 mile mark there, on the right side here is one of the main contributors to the business in this area. This is the Western New York and Pennsylvania Railroad Olean Terminal. This is a maintenance depot rail yard for the Western New York and Pennsylvania. It's an active short-haul rail line. Whoa, way in the back there, see some engines that look like passenger trains? not freight trains, blue and white in the back there. That's pretty interesting. Obviously, since it's a weekend, they're off. Like I said, definitely an active rail line. Nice clean engines there. Western New York and Pennsylvania. We're coming back around now, heading south, heading toward West State Street. Again, some hotels in the area here. Just close to the last intersection with West State Street. This is Higgins Trail Park. I think this is actually fairly new. I don't recall seeing it last year, but then of course I may have been blind too. Forgive me if it's been here for a while. You can see obviously an honoraria to Joe Higgins. And right around the center here, you see a lot of bricks. These are people who have donated to the foundation that created and maintains the Allegheny River Valley Trail. And right on the side of Higgins Park here, we can see a nice convenience area, bicycle repair station, and another water fountain. I think actually this one is working. And we've reached West State Street, our last crossover of this road. These kind of places you definitely want to walk your bike across, wait for the light. Just after crossing that street there, you saw the Bonaventure Junction was there on the left. And the loop trail continues going around the front of St. Bonaventure University. Now parallels Union Street that's just right there. A couple of stops that we're going to make as the trail crosses over some parking areas for the college itself, not specifically for the trail. I wouldn't recommend trying to stage at either of these two areas. These are for employees, obviously. The Bona Loop, 2 1/4. And I think right up here, the main loop. Yep, 5.25. So you can look for them every once in a while. Some are pretty low to the ground. See some of the, I believe these are residence halls on the left. At least they look like residence halls to me. And this is the end of May that I'm filming this, and most likely their semester is over. So otherwise we probably would have still seen a lot of student vehicles still sitting over on the side there. So at this intersection with Bonaventure Road, which is the main road going up and around the back of the campus, we'll cross over. We'll go up this little bit of trail here, and we'll be back where we started. So we've completed the loop back where we started here at the main trailhead. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Allegheny River Valley Trail. This is a very nice and well-maintained loop trail that affords not only quaint college town views and amenities, but also wonderful views of the historic Allegheny River and lush forested areas around St. Bonaventure University that they're very proud of as a member of Tree Campus USA. And no matter how long you want to claim that the Olean Connector Trail portion is, it's an easy ride. Though a bit busier with its combination of on-road and multiple road crossing portions, it's a nice out and back addition to the loop trail. And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Have a great ride.